welcome back. I am really excited to be here today to do, again, something a little bit different. We like to experiment here on this channel, and today I'm going to be customizing Monster High inspired eyeshadow palettes. So this is like a very specific thing, I feel, to me. I'm not sure if any of you guys are going to relate, but ever since I was a small child, I've liked taking characters and using them as inspiration for other things. I remember most specifically when I was a little girl playing Flash dress-up games on the internet, and there was one that was like you were dressing up a mermaid, and I love to take characters from my favorite TV shows and try to make like a mermaid version of them. Like, I would spend hours doing that. So I've always liked to kind of take characters and see if I can turn them or use them for inspiration into something else. I'm not sure why, that's just always been something in my little head that I think is really, really fun to do. And today, I like makeup. I'm not super great at it, but I still really enjoy playing around with it and just having fun and doing creative things on my face, even though you can't tell because of these enormous glasses. But I thought it would be kind of fun. There are a few different options online of places that you can go and you can design like a custom eyeshadow palette. So I thought it would be really cool to take Monster High characters, since Monster High is always in my head and in my heart, and kind of take their designs and use that as inspiration for an eyeshadow palette. So today I'm going to be doing Draculaura, Clawdeen, and Frankie. I thought it would be best to start with some of the original, most iconic characters. Please let me know in the comments down below if you guys would be interested in seeing me do more of these for more characters. I think it's going to be something that is fun for me, and I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. So definitely let me know if that's something that you're interested in seeing more of. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get straight on into the eyeshadow palettes. Okay, so we are using makeupgeek.com to do this. I tried recording this a couple other times on a couple other websites. I know I tried Beautonomy, and I think there was another one. But Makeup Geek just has the best shade range. It isn't stellar, but it is definitely better than the other ones that I tried, so I figured it was the best one to use for the purposes of making this. So we are starting out with Draculaura. As you can see here, the shade range, like I said, it isn't stellar, but we're gonna work with it. And I'm gonna start with trying to find a good pink for her. You can't have Draculaura without having pink. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? And then we are looking here for some more pink tones. These eyeshadow palettes do come with like 9 pans in them. So I was trying to find a few different pinks for her. She does have a couple of pinks on her design, and I did want to represent that well. It was really, really tough because the little swatches are so tiny, so you kind of have to click each one to be able to see it properly, and even then it can look so different once you see it in the pan on the website. You can see me struggling here, or like I feel like you can feel me struggling here with that middle shade. It is going to change eventually because it was just a little bit too orange, but I was starting out with the kind of 3 pinks for her. And then this was me trying to figure out which shade was actually the blackest and like the most deep black, because, you know, Draculaura, vampire, black is like a big color in her color scheme as well. This is where I started to kind of question that middle shade a little bit more. I did know that I wanted at least 1 or 2 shimmers in her palette because she just feels like a sparkly character to me. But it was so hard to figure out which one was kind of the closest to a shade I think she would want. This one was very easy, the yellow, because I am obsessed with Draculaura's designs when Mattel gave them like pops of yellow as an accent color. So I knew from the very beginning that I wanted yellow in there. Also, I'm sorry if you hear any noises. My cat is playing behind me. This is also a accent color that they have with Draculaura a lot, the kind of light blue. I thought, you know, I can't have a pan or a palette with just pinks and blacks, so the yellow and blue I thought were really fun accent colors for this. At this point, I was kind of having trouble with the 9 pans. Because the Monster High characters are designed in such a way that a lot of them have a very limited color palette, it was hard for me to kind of fill up the entire space with Draculaura. You'll see with Clawdeen, it's a little bit easier, but with Draculaura, I was kind of verging into purple territory with her just a little bit, trying to fill up the rest of the space, but still make it look like it was a Dracula or a Draculaura themed palette. I was also trying for a second, it didn't pop up, like the website was kind of buggy sometimes, but I was trying to see if there was any pale color that was like pinky enough in tone to kind of be a lighter color for the palette. And there really just wasn't. It was a lot of various nude shades, but they were so orange in tone that they just weren't gonna work for a Draculaura. I'm like flipping back and forth between the same shades so many times. So because of that, I did skip ahead a little bit. There were literally like 3 minutes of me just switching between a few different colors, and that's not very fun to watch. But this is the final palette that I ended up with. All the pinks, and then the kind of more purpley tones, obviously the black and then the yellow. And then I decided that adding a second blue in would be the best option. I thought that having too many purples in it would kind of confuse the pink in her color scheme, and I figured it would be better to just have a second tone of blue. It's a little bit darker, and I'm not sure if they've ever used a color that dark in her design, but I thought it looked better for the makeup palette, so that's what we were going with for Draculaura. Next up, we are going to be tackling Clawdeen. You can see here that I actually had like inspiration or reference images of her pulled up on another tab because she has a slightly more complicated color story. Obviously, there's like a lot of browns and purples, but she has a lot more accent colors. So this was me picking out a gold for her. I had seen the gold while I was doing Draculaura, and Clawdeen Gold Glamorous, it absolutely had to be in there. I was really hoping that there were some that were a little bit more vibrant, but this was the best gold that Makeup Geek offered, so that's what we went with. And then obviously I had to get a couple of good browns in here. Brown is such like a tricky color because there can be so many different undertones, and I wanted it to be closest to the tones that are actually found in the doll, but then also kind of try to be something that's cohesive and that matches with the rest of the palette. So I was experimenting a little bit with the different browns here, but I found that the warmer, kind of more reddish undertoned browns just seemed more Clawdeen to me, so that's what we went for. Next up, I wanted to start trying to look at purples for Clawdeen because, like I said, purple and brown are kind of her most consistent color scheme. And again, this was kind of difficult. I had been looking at so many purples with Draculaura, and some of them I did have to use, so I wanted to like make sure this palette had enough different colors. But I did think that lavender was a good different one, a little bit closer to something that Clawdeen would have. I do think that the shade range of purples on Makeup Geek was a lot better than like some of the other colors. This was the worst for sure. I feel like a lot of Clawdeen's designs have a really beautiful neon green pop of color to them, and it's just so striking and so bold and so her, but that wasn't an option on this website, and it wasn't an option on any of the websites actually. So I was struggling really hard trying to figure out what the best kind of green color was. I went with the quote-unquote mint to be here, which isn't even a mint color, but it is kind of vaguely green. And then here, same kind of struggle, wanting to do a pink, but not wanting it to be too Draculaura. Clawdeen does have a bit of a different pink to her and also a lot less pink, but I did want to include that as one of her accent colors. Clawdeen just has a lot of color. Like, if you look at all these images that pull up, she works with so many different colors, and it's so fun, but it definitely made it more of a challenge to kind of make this more of a cohesive makeup palette and look like something that could actually be a makeup palette instead of just a mishmash of colors. With one shade left to go, I was kind of at a loss as to what to put there. I was trying just a bunch of different colors, and also I was struggling to use this website, not for any reason of the website. I just am dumb, and I kept trying to click the pan instead of clicking like where I should be clicking. After much debate, this is what I ended up with for the final product. I really like the browns. I think the purples are good purples, but looking back on it, I do think that maybe they were a little bit too pink in like conjunction with the pinks that I did use. So I don't know about that one. I think that the sparkly blue was pretty good and the gold wasn't too bad. The green is the one that was absolutely insufferable to me, but there's only so much you can do. I do kind of like the idea of the 3 matte, 3 glitter, and then 3 matte on the bottom. I think that it makes sense for Clawdeen to have some pretty pop and glitters in her palette, and I was trying to like make it look like maybe an actual palette. I don't know if I succeeded there, but yeah, all told, I know I'm like complaining a lot about this, but I actually think that Clawdeen's turned out pretty good. Last of all today, we have Frankie. We're pulling up some inspo images for her as well, just because I thought that that might be helpful to try to color match again like it did with Clawdeen. So with that, we are going to start with the white. Frankie has a lot of black and white on her. I was really happy they actually had a white eyeshadow instead of me having to use like a pale nude. So that was really nice. I kind of already knew from looking through these colors before that the white and the black were going to be in there. I'm trying to organize this kind of like lightest to darkest, but I did already know that for her mint skin, I was going to have to use that horrific mint to be not mint green, because there really wasn't any other green even remotely close to the right color for her skin. So that was a bit of a letdown, I'm not gonna lie. But I knew black, white, and mint going in were going to have to be some colors for her. The next color that I felt pretty concretely about was the red accent of her like kind of deep red lips. So kind of debating between a couple of different reds here, but I settle on, I believe it's called Hot Tamale. Yeah, Hot Tamale was the kind of more deeper version. And I thought that that fit her lip shade pretty well. It might look good with an actual mint. I don't love it with the mint to be, but again, it's kind of just working with the tools that I've got. And then immediately here, I started to realize a problem, and that was that even more so than with Draculaura, I feel like Frankie has a very limited color palette, because she has the black and white and the mint, and then the red and like a blue. So I knew that I was going to have to do a blue, but that leaves me with a lot of other things to fill up with. So like we pop the blue in there, and then I have just so many more spaces to do something with. I did end up using a second blue, just because, like I said, the blue is kind of one of, I would say, her main colors, or at least it goes with her other colors quite frequently. But oh gosh, I was flipping back and forth between the palette and the reference photos, just frantically trying to spot a color in the references that I hadn't already seen. Like I was just like, there has to be another accent color, but there really isn't. So this was a big struggle for me. So with that struggle, I am just kind of skipping ahead to the final product, because honestly, most of the rest of the recording that I have here was just me scrolling through Frankie Stein reference photos and not finding anything. So what I ended up going with was a tealer color and then a kind of dark brown that I thought verged a little bit closer to the black, and kind of a olivey tone. I don't think that they're accurate really to Frankie, but they did go well with that quote-unquote mint color that we had going on earlier. This one's a little rough, guys. I'm not going to lie. I definitely thought that Clawdeen would have been the hardest with her like very vibrant bold colors and not really having a ton of vibrancy in the shades that were available. But Frankie turned out to be the hardest just because of her combination of the particular colors that she's designed with, and then also the lack of multiple colors that she's designed with. So she's not my favorite, but this is what we ended up with. I'm kind of sorry to be ending on a rough one, but I don't know. I still had fun with it. Overall, I think that they're still interesting palettes to look at and kind of see what you can do with the tool offered on Makeup Geek. So yes, that is all I've got for you guys today. Like I kind of expected from the beginning, I definitely had a lot of fun doing this. As I said, it's always been like a kind of concept that I enjoy. So it's no surprise that I felt a lot of joy doing this. I hope that you guys did as well. Once again, please do let me know if you'd be interested in seeing me do more of these. I know that the eyeshadow selection wasn't stellar. Like, for some reason, when I was looking at these, I looked at several different websites, as I mentioned. I was expecting it to be like every eyeshadow color that this company has produced you could put into like a custom palette, so you'd have just so many shade ranges. That's kind of what I was anticipating, and I didn't get that with any of them. But I think that we picked the one that had the best shade range and like the most versatility for me to be able to make palettes for multiple different characters. So it's not perfect. I would like some slightly different colors, as I said, while, you know, you guys were seeing me design the palettes. But I think it was still a pretty good time and pretty accurate to how I feel, you know, an eyeshadow palette might be designed for those characters. So yeah, I hope you guys had a great day today.